Morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Let's take a look at today's front pages for you. And in the Daily Express this morning, Rishi Sunak has vowed to kick foreign lawbreakers out of the country if he becomes Prime Minister.
The Mail focusing on the closure of the Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic after a review was found that it was failing vulnerable children.
The Mirror decrees the profits of misery as Britain's energy firms make massive profits on the back of the energy crisis. British gas owner Centrica and Shell have made almost £11 billion in just 6 months.
The Guardian has that as well, saying the profit surge insults working people as millions struggle to pay their bills.
The Eye says a Conservative leadership contest has led to a cabinet leak inquiry. Ministers worry that they can no longer hold frank discussions in case talks are weaponised in the battle to succeed Boris.
Okay, let's go through those papers in a bit more detail with author and academic Joanna Williams and Benjamin Butterworth from The Eye. Good to see you both this morning once again. Joanna, let's have a look at The Guardian, should we? They're saying Sir Keir Starmer could face a revolt over the strikes and the picket lines.
So obviously over the past few weeks we've had an awful lot of attention focused on the disunity in the Conservative Party and the differences of opinion that there are with the MPs in that party. What we're forgetting is that there's just as many splits and differences, it seems, in the Labour Party too. In particular, it seems that Keir Starmer has essentially banned his frontbench MPs from going to appear on picket lines. Now, we all know lots of strikes taking place at the moment, and I mean, whatever people think about the strikes, for me, I think this is a sign of working class people essentially coming together, arguing for higher wages, and that is something important. It's something that I would actually support. And to me, if the Labour Party is to serve any purpose whatsoever, it should be about actually getting behind working class people, wanting to make a better life for themselves, wanting to get higher wages. And the fact that he stopped his frontbench MPs from going out there and showing support opens up the question, just what's the point of the Labour Party? But there again, I think we could have asked this question at any point over the past few decades, really.
What do you make, Ben? You're a bit of a lefty.
Well, I mean, look, but I think there's a difference here, because what Keir Starmer is saying, and he's had this ban for a while, since these RMT strikes started, what was it, a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, is that the Labour Party is trying to form a government, not be a protest movement. And so I actually think Keir Starmer is right to say that they shouldn't be on picket lines. First of all, the union that's doing these strikes is not affiliated to the Labour Party. In fact, it funds some of Labour's opponents at times. But, when people, regular voters that swing between Tory and Labour are looking for someone that can form a government rather than go on protests, and actually I think it's a trap for Labour to look like a protest movement. But, this all came about because Sam Tarry, who was a Labour MP and was a shadow minister, he turned up on television doing the rounds as, in his words, Shadow Secretary of State for Transport, which is not his job. He invented it on the spot. And he went
That's what he said.
He did, and he wasn't asked what his job was, as you'd imagine. He said it spontaneously, so he was clearly trying to wind up Keir Starmer, and he got sacked from his shadow ministerial post, which is far more junior, and so that's what sparked this anger about picket lines. But that particular Labour MP is probably going to be deselected by his local Labour Party members. So I think there's a lot of internal skirmishes going on from sort of the left of the Labour Party, and it's playing out. But, it seems a shame because Labour's quite far ahead in the polls, reasonably far ahead in the polls at the moment, and they risk squandering that if they have these internal arguments.
But I think that when Labour was last in government and when Labour's had periods in office and before, does actually correlate with the time when their frontbench MPs did go on picket lines. If you look at the 1970s, 1980s, you did have very high-profile Labour MPs going and showing solidarity with workers, standing on picket lines, and they got voted into office at that point in time too. So I'm not completely convinced that we're going to be so professional, we're not going to go and show solidarity with working people asking for more money, actually works as a political strategy, because it seems to me that's what they're doing, and actually they're not in office and they're not being voted in elections. I think it sends a message to the public that the Labour Party is not on your side if you're a working class person wanting to earn more money.
Well, there's plenty of working class people who are being put out by the the fact that they can't get to work because of the train strikes. But anyway, that's another issue. I want to just juggle things about a little bit, Benjamin.
Why not?
If I may, because we're sort of trying to dodge wangle various reporters and politicians who are about to come on the programme. Can we have a look at the Telegraph and seeing a doctor?
Yes, so
everyone's bothered about this.
Yes, well, good luck seeing a doctor, basically. So the Telegraph has a report on its front page that only 1 in 4 GPs still work full time, so 37.5 hours a week, which is the lowest level that's ever been since they started recording these things. And only 2/5 of people are happy with the service that they get from their GPs. And there was another stat in there that actually amazed me, which is that 55%, so the majority of people, said that in the last 12 months they had avoided going to the GP for a suspected issue they had because they thought it would take too long, it would be too much stress, they wouldn't get it in sufficient time. And when people aren't going to the GP at the first opportunity, if they've got an issue like a lump, heaven forbid, might be cancerous, those kind of issues, if they're not getting seen quickly, well, then that's going to cause worse problems down the line, cost taxpayers more if those health issues get worse. And I think we've got a big problem here because, the body that represents GPs says that actually they're exhausted, they've had a horrible time in the pandemic. That's been quite stressful, during COVID and doing face-to-face, as some of them do. On a human level, that's going to be a real stress for people at work. And so while 1 in 4 GPs are only 1 in 4 are full-time, at the same time, there's a quarter are planning to leave the service within 10 years. So it doesn't look good.
No, it's worrying. Look, we're going to have to just leave it there for now. Don't go anywhere in case we need to come back to you two, which we may do. You never know.